Hey guys, Ben Crawshaw here. I want to welcome you to today's webinar. Appreciate, as usual, you guys taking time out of your busy schedules to join us for what we're talking about today. Very, very important topic. But I wanted to let you know first off that I'm on here a little bit early just to make sure you can see everything and hear everything. We're relying on technology for this webinar, so we want to make sure all the technology is coming through loud and clear. So Kelly Wallace is going to be joining me today. She's going to be managing the chat stream, and I don't know if you look over on the screen, you see an area that says chat. You can get on there and let us know where you're from. So that's where I'd love for you to just jump in, and that's a way to participate in this webinar. You can have conversations with each other. You can ask questions. We'll get to as many of those questions as we can throughout the webinar, but we love for this to be interactive. We like for this to be a conversation, not just a lecture, so to speak. So Kelly, are you with me? Can you see everything and hear everything clearly?
Hey Ben, yeah, audio is great, video is great, and we already have some folks in the chat stream telling us where they're from.
All right, well, fire away. Let me know where a couple of people who are from who are joining us today.
Yeah, we have Anna all the way from Athens, Greece.
Nice. Nice.
I know. Anna, can we come where you are?
Seriously.
We have Kim from Maryland. We have Sarah who's in Mexico. And let's see, Mac from Denver. I love Denver. That's a great.
Yep.
See, there's Keith from Nashville. Hey, Keith. And then who else do we have? Ooh, Jeffrey from Amarillo, Texas.
Great. So we're literally all over the map today. I love that. That's great. And again, talking about the chat stream, you guys feel free to get in there and, if someone asks a question that, in your experience, you've gone through that, you've discovered some things about that particular topic, you can feel free to jump in and answer those questions as well. The Rocket Company has always been about not the experts on anything, but just gathering information and content for some great church leaders out there and just making it available to everyone through digital products. And so we are a fan of you guys more so than we are a fan of ourselves, because you're the ones out there making it happen. We're just trying to be, a support system for you and help you, have the resources and the training that you need. So it's 2 o'clock right now, so some of you are just joining us, and I want to welcome you to today's webinar and really appreciate you carving time out of your schedule, because this is an important topic that we're going to talk about today, and there's a lot we could say, so we're going to work hard to get it in under an hour and cover this topic and this discussion. And so again, if you're just joining us, I want to make sure we have a chat stream. If you look over, you see chat, you can log in. You could log in through the Facebook account that you have, or there may be another way that you log in, and that way you can ask some questions along the way that we'll work hard to answer. You can have a conversation, make this a dialogue. We want this to be a dialogue, not a monologue, not just me, a talking head. So I would love just to get you warmed up and get you in the chat stream. Jump on in the chat stream and let us know where you're from. And I want you to know we have Kelly Wallace who's going to be joining me today, and she'll be managing that chat stream as well as reading some of your questions to me. So Kelly, how's everything looking? Can you hear everything? Talk to me about that chat stream.
Yeah, everything's going great. Audio and video is perfect. We have lots of folks in right now. A bunch of people from South Carolina, Maryland, New Zealand is in the house. That's amazing.
Nice. So we've already mentioned, Kelly, there's Mexico, we talked about Greece and New Zealand. We have literally a couple of non-United States countries joining us, which is awesome.
Yes, it's exciting.
Totally.
We also have some folks from Florida, which is fun. I hope it's nice and sunny down there.
Yes, another country, Florida, right? So yeah, that's awesome. All right, guys. Well, we have a lot to talk about, and I'm going to warn you, if you haven't been a part of one of my webinars before, I tend to talk very quickly. So we're going to work hard to make sure that there's a replay that's sent back out, so that if you miss anything, that you can kind of catch up. And also, you can jump in the chat stream if you miss like a big important point, and somebody else on our team or somebody else watching may be able to jump in there and give you some answers. But just again, a warning, I get going, I get real excited, and I start talking really fast. So just be ready for that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to take myself off so you can see my slides, and that the content we're talking about, we're going to have that front and center. So that'll be important, and I'll make sure that we can see it. So I'm going to turn my camera off, and I'm going to share my entire screen, and I'm going to click over here. All right, Kelly, can you see that? Everything good?
Yep, we can see your slides.
All right, great. So guys, we're going to jump right in today. Again, appreciate you guys joining us. Feel free to jump in the chat stream. Kelly, if anything technologically goes wrong, you can jump in there and let me know. I'm going to just go for it as if everything is working. Hey, for some of you, again, if you haven't joined us before, sometimes, on your end, things can freeze or they can slow down a little bit. The internet connection is pretty good on our end. So it may be that you're in a place that has, spotty internet. Sometimes just refreshing helps. Sometimes just waiting a little while and things will be fine. But just, show some patience. It's technology and that can be frustrating, but it's what's allowing us to do this webinar for free today. So again, appreciate it. We're talking about how to ensure kids are safe at your church. So when it comes to child safety within the context of the local church, what is our responsibility as church leaders, especially as children's ministry leaders, or if you're a point person or a lead pastor, you and your children's pastor, how can you journey together to make sure that, hey, this is a safe place in our community for kids to attend? My name is Ben Crawshaw. I do content at the Rocket Company, which again, a lot is just learning from you guys and from your experiences and what you've done well and what you haven't done well, both of which that you've learned from. Started in ministry in 1998, been involved in all different types of ministry at churches of all different sizes. I love small churches. Grew up in a small church. My first job was at a small church. My dad's a pastor of a small church. So we all have different measurements of what's a big church and what's a small church. But if you're out there in a big church, I love you too. You're awesome. But I'm passionate about people in small churches and small church leaders. And I just love helping churches. And my goal is just to make a difference. So I'm not the theoretical guy. I'm not the we're talking philosophy. I'm very practical. I'm very application oriented on behalf of you, because I know that I want to be someone who helps you just have the resources that you need to make a difference right now and immediately. So my goal today is for child safety at your church to stop being confusing, or overwhelming could be another word we could use there, and start being proactive, that there would be some motion, some things that are set in motion, as opposed to just feeling overwhelmed by this topic and all the different things that need to take place. Now, if you stay to the end of this webinar, which by the way, I would love if you can put your phones on silent, if you can eliminate as many distractions as possible. You may not be able to do that, but if you can, really kind of focus in with us. I'm going to work hard to keep this under an hour. If you stay to the end, I'll share the number one thing I've learned about child safety. It's very practical. It's something that you may not be able to implement by this weekend, by your next church service, but certainly I think won't take too long once you get the process together. Now, a lot of child safety trainings make you feel like every child is in danger at your church, and it's really overwhelming. It's they make you feel like wow, if we're not careful, the world's going to come to an end. And I understand the point of that, which is to get us all motivated, but it can be really overwhelming. It can be discouraging. It can make us feel like if every volunteer isn't CPR trained and we don't have perfect plans for everything, that every kid is going to be hurt this Sunday. Today's training is not going to be that. It's going to be about creating a blueprint to make things better immediately. It's really about saying, okay, we just need some action steps. We just need something that we're going to do right now to move this thing in the right direction. And the truth is, child safety is important to every church. So no one says, oh yeah, I don't care if kids are safe at our church. I want them to be in danger. Or I don't care. Nobody says that. We all care about children being safe at our church, just like we do at home. No one is really sure what to do. There's a lot of theories and opinions, and there's folks on this and that, and it's kind of, it's just overwhelming, and we're not really sure where to start. And so the main focus of today's training is about identifying action-oriented steps that you can take immediately. And again, let me pause here to say we have a chat stream. And as we talk, if you have any questions or anything you'd love to discuss, feel free to type that in. We may not get to every question, but we'll get to as many as we can. Now, the way I used to handle child safety and the way I used to think about it in church, and there was a time when I was responsible for doing the fundraising and was leading our church through a time of expanding our children's ministry area. And conversations would come up from time to time, and thinking about the way people check in, check out. It was like getting my teeth cleaned at the dentist office. That's the way I thought about it. It's like I knew it was something I should focus on. Like, oh, I need to schedule my next cleaning. I need to go and see if I have any cavities, right? We all know it's something that we should do, and we don't do it, or we don't do it right, or we don't stay with regular schedules, so we feel guilty. And so I pushed it out of my mind and just hoped for the best. And I don't know if you can see that, Kelly, but I'm going to quit mail so that my mailbox will quit showing up with emails there. So it really was just, one of those things that I just felt guilty about. And over time, here's what I've learned is that when kids are safe, parents feel comfortable. Now, this is a big deal because parents feeling comfortable is about them connecting with their Heavenly Father. This is not just a wisdom thing when it comes to keeping kids safe. This is part of your main worship service. This is a big part of being a pastor and preaching, knowing that you are preaching to an audience that is engaged because they feel more comfortable. Because when moms are sitting there and they're stressed out about their baby, or they're worried about their kid, or there's been some issues of safety that they don't feel they're not going to feel comfortable. And I promise you, especially with moms, if their mind is on that, it's going to be really hard for them to engage in worship and to engage when it comes to the sermons that are being preached. So this isn't just about kids. This is about families. This is about reaching parents. This is about your Sunday morning worship service. So much is at stake here. And when kids are unsafe, parents just leave and they don't come back. If moms feel like my son, who has an allergy, is in jeopardy of being fed the wrong snacks on a Sunday morning, they're not going to come back to church there. They're just going to be like, this is literally an unsafe place for my kid, and I can't put my kid in an unsafe position. So the key to child safety is preparing ahead of time. Prepare for the expected. So you have expected things like parents are going to drop off their kids in your children's ministry environment, and they're going to pick them up. That's the expected. That's going to happen week after week. We want to prepare for that ahead of time and then prepare for the unexpected. Like, what do we do if there's a suspicious person in our children's ministry area? How do we handle that as a children's ministry and volunteer team? We want to be prepared for the unexpected. We want to volunteer to know what to do if a suspicious person is walking around the children's ministry area because we've talked about it and we've prepared ahead of time. So some questions like, what if the power goes out? What do we do then? What if a child goes missing? How do we handle that? What's our plan there? What if you suspect or a volunteer suspect that a child is being abused? Like, how do we handle that situation? Like, it doesn't take long for this topic for child safety to increase your heart rate and decrease your sleep at night. Like, you start thinking about all of the things that could happen and it becomes pretty stressful. And that's what we want to do today, is take some of the stress out of child safety in your church. It's better to have a perfect plan than an adequate plan, right? Everybody wants a perfect plan for every situation, but it's way better to have an adequate plan than no plan at all. So all of you joining this webinar, you may be kind of in, kind of out. I need you to focus on what I'm about to say, and then you can go back to multitasking. You don't have to have perfect plans. You just need a plan. It may not be that, your power outage plan, your emergency weather plan, your diapers to potty policy. It's not that all of them are going to be perfect, and just every step along the way is exactly, what needs to happen. Your security tags, all of this stuff. It's just having a plan, and you can edit your plan. You can improve your plan. You can get feedback on your plan, but no plan at all. And then it's just left up to people to decide. Now, fortunately, by the grace of God and with a lot of, talented volunteers, many of whom have raised kids or are raising kids of their own, there is a lot of people around to handle situations that happen. But you still want a plan, because there may be a time when you grow. There may be a time when you have volunteers who don't have all the experience that some of the moms that are volunteers in your children's ministry do. It may be that you'll be in a position to help another church in the community have some plans for what they're doing. And the more I've had conversations with churches about this, the more I've realized that none of them have a perfect plan. They just are, putting together plans and then improving them as they go, so that they give volunteers resources, so volunteers are ready for the expected and the unexpected. It starts with the children's ministry leadership team, in conjunction with the church staff or the pastor or the pastoral team. Then it moves to 4 areas of focus, and this is what we're going to talk about today. Emergencies, the unexpected, having plans for those. Parents and your communication with parents and the situations that involves them, classrooms and volunteers. And so we are going to jump in and talk about area of focus number 1, which is emergencies. And then we'll go to Q&A in a little bit, but we're going to jump in and talk about some of the things that I believe you need to have in place when it comes to emergencies. Focus on procedures. So this is our procedure if X happens, if Y happens. And that way, again, these don't have to be perfect procedures, but you can give that to a volunteer and they know if this happens, if we get power outage or there's emergency weather, if there's a fire drill, if that happens, this is our procedure. It's step 1, step 2, step 3. We know what we're doing. So some of the procedures that I think are great to have would be a fire evacuation procedure. And this is, for the volunteer, and then what they do with kids, where they go, knowing the fire escape, do your infants and babies, most likely will be in their cribs and will be rolled out in their cribs. And by the way, having your cribs inspected, might be something that you need to look at. By law, where you're required to have certain types of cribs and not have outdated cribs. But I know that can be an expensive thing. But I know at my church, the fire evacuation procedure, as it involves babies and crawlers, is they are put in cribs and they are pushed out. They're rolled out in their cribs. That's part of the fire evacuation procedure for them. Weather emergency procedure. So all of a sudden, we're halfway through church, tornado sirens go off, something like that. What's our weather emergency procedure? A missing child procedure. So what is our protocol? How do we handle this if a kid goes missing? A suspicious person procedure. That is an emergency. It is to be treated like an emergency. If there's somebody, roaming the halls or in your children's ministry area that just looks suspicious, you don't recognize them, or you ask them why they're there and they can't give you a clear answer, or they tell you that they're related to somebody they're not related to, all of a sudden, that's an emergency. And then the power outage procedure. And, these procedures should explain to staff members and volunteers simply what to do with kids and how to handle parents. So part of when you come up with a procedure for your fire evacuation is helping volunteers to know, okay, you're going to have to navigate parents in this situation, because child safety in emergency situations often involves telling parents to stay away or wait. And this is not what they want to hear. And volunteers need to know this. So if you have a head count of kids based on your roster, and okay, this is where we go if there's emergency weather, or if there's a fire, we go outside and we stand at the corner of the parking lot. And then we do another head count. And at that point, parents can come and check out their kids. Well, if the fire alarm goes off, parents are going to start scrambling towards their kids. They're going to try to pick up a kid. And you're just trying to get kids out into the parking lot, and all of a sudden you're out there and you count and you realize that you have somebody missing. So now you got people running back into the church building looking for a kid, and you didn't get to check off that kid was checked out through the roster. And another thing is that you want to go to a specific place in the parking lot so you can have your safe checkout procedure. Because so a fire evacuation doesn't allow someone like a predator or someone, a parent who doesn't have custody, to pick up their kid. You want to go through the same procedure so that I'm safely giving this kid to a parent who has a security tag. I'm giving this kid to the right person. And so in order for that to happen, parents, you have to wait until we get to the corner of this parking lot and I do a head count, and then you can check out your children in a normal procedure. But you can't just grab them while we're all in transit, moving out to the parking lot. Parents don't want to hear this. They're frantic and they're grabbing their baby and they want to hold on to them. And so volunteers need to know this is part of our procedure. You can communicate this with parents. The same resources that you give to volunteers for these emergency procedures, you can give them to parents so that they know. You have to wait. So questions. Kelly, do we have any questions so far?
Hey, yeah, right now we have one from Josiah. He is wondering how he can approach the children's director about child safety without making it seem that they're doing a bad job keeping the children safe.
Yeah, I think it doesn't have to be a thing where you're saying, hey, I think there needs some improvement. I think it's just, hey, I came across these resources. I came across this webinar, the webinar I'm doing, or, maybe there's another webinar. There's all kinds of, stuff online that you could just forward to him or her, or print out and give to them as just a way of saying, really, I want to help. Approaching with humility and gratitude is a great way to approach anything. If you're grateful for, the work that they do, which is, that's not an easy job. And children's ministry is open as much as any other ministry in a church. And you come humbly and want to help in any way that you can, and just say, hey, I can run, the ball down the field and make sure some of these procedures are implemented. I would just love to serve and help in any way I can. Might be a great way to start.
That's great. Lewis has a great question. How can you communicate these procedures to parents, especially visitors who aren't familiar with the church?
Yeah, you can't communicate every procedure to a parent who's new to the church. I think you can have quarterly meetings, or maybe there's a new parent orientation. And then part of it is going to be either sending out email that compiles all of these things, or printing it out and giving it to them. And the truth is, parents probably aren't going to read a lot of it, but it does let them know, hey, we have a plan in place. When I was in student ministry and we had parents that were uninvolved in our church, but their students went to our student ministry, the main thing I wanted those parents to know was that I had their teenage son or daughter's best interest at heart, and that our church was a safe place for them to be. And so sometimes if you can show, look, we have procedures and policies and documents for all of this stuff, they're not going to read it, but they're going to know, wow, this is a good place. This is a safe place for my child or my baby to be. I think that's the best that you can do outside of having a meeting where you have a captive audience. It's a great question.
Great. I have another one about security tags. Can you kind of describe how those work?
Yep, we're going to talk about that at the very end. I hate to make you wait, but that was my, if you stay until the end, the number one thing I've learned, which is security tags, spoiler alert, and I'll talk about that a little bit at the end. So those are great. Keep typing in those questions. For the sake of time, we're going to keep moving here to talk about area of focus number 2, which are parents. Focus on policies. So, well, I'll explain this in a minute, why policies takes the emotion out of it. But here are some policies that I think would be great to have in place. Check-in and check-out policy. Parents, this is our policy. This is the way kids check in. This is the way kids check out. And that way it is simply it's a system. It's a way that we repetitively do this week after week. You do it a couple times, you'll get this policy down. You'll get used to this system. This is the way it's done to ensure child safety. Parent responsibility policy. So this is not like, daycare, where you drop your kids off and you run, and it has nothing to do with you. There are some things that we need to know about your kid. There's some things that you are responsible for in this procedure, and parents need to know that this is not a reckless thing on their behalf. They have a responsibility as part of keeping kids safe, a wellness policy. So letting parents know what are some signs that your kid is too sick? Are they have a fever, or, there all kinds of gross stuff happening, when we get sick, that's a time for that child to not be in your children's ministry environment. And why? Because we don't want them to get other kids sick. And we certainly, even from a standpoint of just the way we carry ourselves as a church, we don't want parents to feel like, man, if I drop off my kids in that children's ministry area, who knows what they're going to get? Because they allow kids, no matter how sick they are, they have a certain amount of sickness that's visible. They allow them to be there. Now you're not communicating safety to people in your congregation. So there needs to be a wellness policy that parents abide by, a parent custody policy. So, man, this one threw me at first when I first heard it, is you have parents going through a divorce and they're in a custody battle, or a parent has lost custody and they see church as the opportunity to regain custody, pick up their kid, see their kid for a little while. How do we handle that? That's a big deal. And then a media release form. This simply means if we're going to have pictures or videos that we use, for display on our, on our website, on the Facebook, or on our, are going to be published in any way, part of a brochure, part of our church, publication, any of that, then parents just sign a media release form which says, I give you permission to do that. When a volunteer can tell a parent, this is our policy, it makes it non-personal. It takes the emotion out of it. So in other words, it's not like, hey, your kid is too sick to be in children's ministry today. Get that kid out of here. No, this is, hey, we have a policy, and the policy states that if a child has a fever, that they cannot be in children's ministry that day, then that's just our policy. It's not a personal attack. It's not an emotion. It's not a bias slant against a kid inside of your children's ministry. It's just simply a policy. It's a policy is a policy. It's non-emotional. And it allows volunteers to communicate to parents without it being heated. Parents will get upset or saying, oh, you let that kid in. That kid even seemed more sick than my kid is. Well, the truth is, hey, I'm doing my best to follow this policy. You can look at this policy. I can look at this wellness policy. I made a decision based on that, and it's not about the volunteer versus the parent. It is simply about the policy and the interpretation of the policy, and I think that just helps them in that position. When volunteers can communicate the why behind the policy, it lets parents know how seriously you take their child's safety. So for instance, if you're training your volunteers and you say, hey, listen, did you know that when parents are upset because you won't allow their kid to be in children's ministry, or you page them or text them to say, hey, your kid is sick, I need you to come pick them up. And you can say, hey, look, I just want to let you know why we have this policy in place, is because we have a lot of parents who, are showing up here for the first time, and they drop off their kids, and we just don't want their kids to get sick from other kids. And we know that happens sometimes, but we want to do the best job we can to ensure that kids stay healthy in our children's ministry environment for the sake of these new families and these new parents and families that are new to our church. It protects our kids, and it helps us engage these new families. Then it really is a vision casting opportunity. So it goes from a parent who's annoyed because you paged them and they had to come pick up their kid, to someone who realizes, man, they do take safety very seriously in this church, and that's a big deal. All right, area of focus number 3 is classrooms. So we're going to talk about classrooms. Focus on guardrails. So just focusing on having the right guardrails, the right boundaries in place to help your classroom function in a healthy and vibrant way. Allergy guardrails. So again, this is part of parents. This is all part of volunteers. Almost all this involves all this, but allergy guardrails. So this is our guardrail when it comes to making sure a kid with allergies doesn't get a snack that they're allergic to. That's the last thing that we want. So we have these allergy guardrails, which usually involves, multiple opportunities for parents to state whether or not their kid has an allergy, neon stickers that are placed on a kid, and volunteers being trained to regularly look for those stickers, to have a roster where they have a note. I mean, we're talking 3 or 4 different places where allergies are noted. I know at my church several years ago, a kid was picked up and he said that he was given goldfish, which he has, he's allergic to. And so parents started freaking out. Well, he didn't eat them. So he just told his parents that they gave him goldfish. So he could have eaten them, and you just want to avoid those situations. That's when it gets pretty heated with parents and families. Diapers to potty guardrails. So who can change a diaper? Who can't? Do you allow men to change a diaper? Do you not? Do you allow leaders to go to the bathroom alone with kids? I don't suggest that. I don't suggest, especially men going by themselves. There's guardrails as far as standing outside the door. If somebody's in the bathroom and then they need some help, then you go in. 2 volunteers go in. Try to never go in alone to the bathroom. Just stuff like that. Discipline guardrails. How do we handle a kid when they're misbehaving? And again, making sure this is safe. Like, what if a kid is hitting another kid? And it may not be safety in the sense that they're going to get injured, but you just want to, you don't want parents picking up their kids and learning, hey, I got hit 4 times today by this other kid. So you got to have discipline guardrails in place and how to handle those situations. Classroom cleanliness guardrails. So in the same way you want to protect from the standpoint of parents dropping off kids who are sick, you want your classroom to be clean, which involves disinfectant and cleaning toys and cleaning your area and your environment after each hour or after each service, whenever it meets. Handicap and special needs guardrails. So this is how do we make sure we're ready, and how do we make sure we're handicap accessible? And this is a great classroom experience for people who have special needs. We want to make sure we have all of that in place. And then security stickers. Security stickers are the way that you can ensure and volunteers can ensure that the right person is picking up the right child. So when they get there, they sign in and they are given a sticker, and there's a matching sticker or a clip, a matching number that is given to the parent. And at our church, it's a little thing that clips on, like to my daughter's dress, or to the collar of your son's shirt. And then I'm just getting, I get a card that's Velcro to it. They pull it apart, and that card, I just put it in my pocket. Well, I'm not allowed to pick up my daughter unless I hold up a card that matches the tag that she has clipped onto her dress. And if those two don't match, then I can't pick her up. And that is, my church's way of just making sure the right person is picking up the right person. So if I drop off my daughter and my wife is going to go pick her up, I have to give her that card so that she can go show that it matches. If a grandparent's going to pick them up, they have to have that card. But we do not allow people who don't have matching security stickers pick up children, because we're just at a day and age where we can't say that, oh, there's not going to be someone with a predator mindset in a church. There's not going to be someone with malicious intent roaming around our church. Those days are over. And so we have to be vigilant, even when sometimes it seems over the top. It is like, no, I know you, and I know you're this girl's dad, but I have to have security stickers that match in order for you to pick her up. And it's to ensure her safety, and it's mainly to ensure the safety of all these kids, some of whom I know their parents far less than I know you. And it's just part of the guardrails. Kids will spend more time in your classrooms than anywhere else in church as they grow up. And so the simpler it is for volunteers to navigate safety issues, the more they can focus on investing in kids and establishing faith in the next generation at a young age. So the less they have to think about, now, what is our policy for taking kids to the bathroom? How do I handle this? Like, I don't know. Do I just go and walk in? Do I stand outside? Do I just tell them to go down the hall to the bathroom and come back? Or again, if you have a bathroom in your classroom, as a volunteer, if I just know, okay, this is our policy. These are our guardrails. This is the way we handle this. Then great. Okay, good. I got that. I can navigate through that pretty quickly now, and I can focus on hanging out with, playing with, teaching, instructing the kids in this children's ministry. It's just a big deal. So, Kelly, let's jump back in for some Q&A. What you got?
We've got some really great questions. Can you give examples of parent custody policies, and is that tied to security tags?
It is, and this is part of a system that we're going to talk about at the end today. It's one of the documents that's included in a resource that the Rocket Company is bringing to the table. And I man, I did, some research with a couple of children's ministries to talk through child custody. But the main thing is knowing if there is a custody situation and trying to document that. And that may not always be the case. But certainly the security tags are going to take care of that. But if a parent doesn't have custody, and you don't know that, then handing someone a security tag could be very simple. But the resource in that new product that came out walks you through how to handle that. It's really how to navigate that internally with your team. What else, Kelly?
Great. What do you suggest for parents, how they can approach their church if the church isn't implementing these safety procedures?
Yeah, and again, it's kind of what we talked about before. It was approaching with gratitude. I mean, most churches are doing the best that they can, working as hard as they can based on what they know and the resources that they have, and just being grateful for the time that they spend investing into kids. And I would assume, and I could be wrong here, but I would assume that churches that are weak on safety are probably strong on love. Like, they love your kids and they care about them. They just haven't thought through some of this stuff. Or like in the case of my dad's church, it's kind of an old school mindset, and they're, maybe it's an older church, and so everything's going to be fine. Everything's going to kind of work out. They kind of have that mindset, and maybe not as aware of as much that can go wrong as maybe some of us are in just researching and discussing these topics. So again, I think gratitude and then humility and just saying, hey, I want to help in any way that I can. And if you love for me, I can run with making sure some of this is implemented. And I just wanted to give this to you on behalf of your job. And, let me know if there's any way that I can help. If you can approach it from man, I care about you, I'm grateful for you, and so I thought of you, and so I'm sending this to you, and not from a standpoint of a critique, hey, I really think you need some help in this area. It's the idea of like a freebie, getting something free. Well, that's awesome. But if it's, someone gives you something that makes you feel like it's a reflection of something that you're doing wrong, then it's a problem. So it's all about approach. But the more resources you could put in their hands, the better. I don't think conversations in this instance works. Hey, we need to work on the safety in our church. It's just such an overwhelming topic. Practical resources, blogs, documents, stuff that's done by churches, for churches. That's the kind of stuff that people look at and say, oh, thank you. This is so helpful. Let's go make some copies, hand it out to our volunteers, and talk about it. All right, let's go one more, Kelly.
Great, super helpful, Ben. What would you say to a leader who has some parents who do not want to sign media release forms? What's a practical way for them to ensure that child isn't in pictures?
Well, yeah, if the parents won't sign a media release form, then you just have to make sure that you follow up and, you don't have that kid in videos or in pictures. And I think that anytime, you're going to have a photographer come in or you're going to get video footage, then there needs to be just a document. And that's really what a lot of this is about, is a document that has kids that have signed, parents have signed media release, and kids who haven't. But the way I would approach this would be, if I were to get pictures taken, I would just pre-plan those. Okay, I want a picture in my 2-year-old classroom. I want a picture in our large group environment. And then I want a picture of, our children's ministry sign, or, the entryway. And then it may just be that you want to get media release forms from the kids in that 2-year-old class. And then the kids whose parents don't sign, you just pull them out of the classroom for just a little bit while the photographer runs in there and takes pictures as fast as possible. And then large group, you may want to focus in on, the stage and who's on stage, or, the performance or teaching area, and just stay away from crowd shots. And that way you can limit as much media release as you need to. But I think if you pre-plan those shots and even say we may even need to compile the kids who've had media releases signed to be in this shot. It keeps you out of like, random pictures being taken and not really being sure who ended up in that picture and who didn't. But yes, if a parent will not sign a media release form, you cannot, you got to work really hard to make sure they don't show up in any of your published media or technology. It'll just keep you from having headaches or even lawsuits down the road. So the more you can avoid that, the better. All right, we're going to go to area of focus number 4. Then we're going to have some more Q&A. Volunteers, you want to focus on preparation, and that's pretty straightforward. Now, let me back up here to say the number one thing is background checks. Background checks. I could not say that enough. But background checks, that's a service that's done by a company like Protect My Ministry. It's a great company who does background checks. That's not an internal document. What we're talking about here is child safety internally. This is you, parents, volunteers, classroom. Background checks are an external service done by a company who has expertise in that area. And so background check is the number one thing you need to think about for volunteers. But for the focus of what we're talking about today, we're talking about the internal processes and procedures, an interview guide. So this is a guide to interviewing volunteers, a teacher position description so that they're going to understand, part of child safety is your interview process, background checks, and teachers understanding their expectation, teachers understanding your approach to wellness, cleanliness, any gray areas like diapers and taking kids to the bathroom. They understand all of those situations. A ministry team commitment, and this is going to, this is part of the standard that they live their lives, which keeps, them out of a position where they're showing up and they're distracted. They're not paying as much attention. Things are happening. They're not as focused, so they can't handle a power outage procedure as well. There's a lot going on in their personal life, and so they're more prone to get snappy with the kids or, again, just kind of careless in the way they handle things. Child abuse education. So this is educating your volunteers on what to look for, how to spot, how to handle child abuse. And some of this is different state to state, but there are some general things that I think can help educate volunteers when they see signs of child abuse or they see signs that a kid has been, sexually or physically abused within their home. When it comes to child safety, your volunteers should be your number one priority. So before kids, before parents, before your classroom, volunteers, because volunteers are going to be in the mix when situations, the expected and the unexpected happen. They're going to be there for the check-in and check-out. They're going to be there for the power outage, fire evacuation plans. They're going to be there to make sure the room's clean and that kids, diapers are changed in a proper way. Volunteers are the common denominator for all of this. So you want to make sure they have background checks, and you just want to make sure they are prioritized. Everything we've talked about today is something that can be given to a volunteer. Volunteers are a section of this that we've talked about just to give you perspective on these 4 areas. But volunteers need to know your suspicious person plan, and volunteers need to know about the media release forms and getting parents to sign them. And volunteers need to understand security tags and how they work. It's a really, really big deal. So Kelly, let's take 2 more questions right now.
Okay, great. Do you suggest a special volunteer training specifically for child safety?
I think that you want to limit the new volunteer orientation as much as possible, because you want people you don't want people to feel like, oh my goodness, I'm overwhelmed here. I have so much that I have to sit through and go to, and I'm not even a volunteer yet. You don't want to spook people off. You got dads who are kind of volunteering for the first time, people who are reluctant and they just threw themselves out there a little bit. I think as much as you can make that a part of what they get when you do an original orientation, but this is part of the ongoing training. So the weekly meetings, if you huddle up or as you email volunteers, this is something that you are continually reinforcing in what you're talking about. So let's say you have a weekly meeting. There may be one of these areas that you focus on for 5 to 10 minutes. But again, putting documents in their hand, that's going to help a lot. Or you have a day where you say, hey, I want to make sure everyone here is aware of your fire evacuation route. I think you keep dripping it in as much as possible. Now, start with the big rocks, and that is the security tags, the diaper and potty policy, and you kind of focus in there to begin with, and then you can start moving through education as they go along. But again, when you orient them, you can give them all of these documents so that they have a chance to look at them. But I don't want people to be so overwhelmed that they're like, okay, I don't think I can volunteer here. Every kid is in danger. I'm not educated. I don't know CPR, so maybe I shouldn't do this. You want people to feel like, hey, we make sure this is safe. And so part of the ongoing conversation we have, children's ministry, leadership team, and volunteers, is child safety. It's something that we're always talking about, just like we're talking about, what's the game and what is our, core content that we're teaching, the biblical content that we're teaching. Child safety is part of that conversation as well.
Great. How can you make sure that the entire children's ministry area at your church is safe? So things like electrical outlets and sharp objects.
Yeah, that's great. And there's a lot of ways that you can do this. A very simple way would be to you or your children's pastor, and then just another person. Could be another staff member. It could be somebody who, it could be a parent of a young child or, of a toddler who they're already thinking about this stuff in their home. So for them to think about it at your church shouldn't be that big of a deal. And you just do a walkthrough. A walkthrough is a great place to start. And I would keep a notebook where you may write down 20 areas that need improvement, but try to prioritize them and then just focus on the top 3 to 5. And then what you can do is there may be a volunteer in your church who's really great with construction or home stuff who can help you with this and would love to volunteer, or you just have a volunteer work day, and you just see how many volunteers will show up, and you just focus on these top 3 to 5 things. When those get done, you move to the next 3 or 5. Now, you could do some other things. You could have a police officer come through and check from a standpoint of crime, or like what to do in suspicious situations. You could have a fireman come through, the fire marshal. You can there's insurance companies that can send somebody through to do kind of an audit of your area. But getting an immediate start would be just you and someone else doing a walkthrough. Walkthroughs, you can discover a lot more than you think, because you walk through, you have someone else who's looking at it with fresh eyes, or they haven't seen it, as much as you have, and they may be able to spot some stuff that would be really helpful for you from a safety standpoint. So that's great. We're going to get to more Q&A in a second, but I want to ask you a question right now. Would you like to ensure that children are safe at your church? Well, of course you would. That's the reason you're at this webinar. That's the reason you're asking the great questions that you're asking, and we're having the discussion that we're having. In the past hour, we've covered a lot. We've talked about a lot of things as it involves child safety. There's so much more to talk about. This is an area where, man, we could talk all day. And even if we did have all day to talk, we couldn't cover everything, because there are so many issues, topics out there when it comes to parent conversations, when it comes to, your classrooms, electrical courts. What do you do? How do we make sure that all of our cleaning supplies are properly labeled? Like, we didn't talk about that, did we? You need more than just a training. You need resources. You need resources that you can give your volunteers, that you can give parents, that you can show people, hey, we don't have a perfect plan, but we have a plan for this. We have already thought about the procedures. We've thought about the policies. We've established the guardrails. We've prepared our volunteers. We're ready to go. And so I'm just excited to talk about the child safety training system. We've never talked about it before because it is a brand new product. When I say brand new, I mean, this is it. We are now talking about it for the first time because it is brand new, literally hot off the press. And with ready-to-use documents and done-for-you training resources, the child safety training system simply does this. It helps your church implement processes that protect the next generation. So our goal was that the next generation Be protected. Why? Because it's just wise, first off. And number two, because that engages families and it communicates to parents and families in your community that this is the safest place for kids to be in this community, our church, because we care about the next generation. We care about families. The child safety training system will move your children's ministry protection from need to have in place. Because chances are throughout this webinar, there's a lot of things that you saw, or as I went through these bulleted list of documents, you're like, oh yeah, we need to have. Oh yeah, we need to have. We should have a plan for that. We should talk about that. Now you're going to have it in place in immediately, which is incredible. And it's 20 plus turnkey child safety documents. So the documents that we've talked about today, those are done. We've done those for you. We've done them, that you can give to your volunteers this Sunday. You can email to your volunteers tonight. They're ready to go right now. And there's an overview strategy document that kind of walks through the big pieces, and then an infographic. But the top, man, that key, those 20 turnkey means ready to use. It means done for you, ready right now. Child safety documents. These were curated from children's pastors, preschool pastors, and just made sure that, hey, we're ensuring child safety. And this system, it will not only give you practical tools to keep your kids safe, it'll also give you parent and volunteer resources, all directed at protecting the children in your church. And that's the great thing about this is great for your classroom, it's great for your kids, it's great for parents, it's great for volunteers, it's great for your staff. Like, these are resources that you can be using in multiple facets. You can use these resources to help other churches in your community who need help with their child safety. And I want to tell you a fast action bonus, because what we say is we reward people who act quickly, is the guest services system. The guest services system is an overview, a guest services team training. There's roles and responsibilities, schedule and agenda, the new visitor prep guide, new visitor prep questions, information table guide, design for info table sign-up cards, visitor response email so people can sign up to express interest or have questions. And then there's the email written in response to them, a connection huddle guide. And you can use this in your children's ministry area as well. You can have a host team that is part of your children's ministry, volunteer roles. You may have volunteers who they can only be there once a month. Well, have a host team or a children's ministry guest services team that you may have rotating people, and use all of this to train them on how they handle parents' questions, situations out front. So the guest services system is free if you sign up by the end of this webinar. So you jump in, and we're going to give you the entire guest services system and all of those documents. We're going to give those to you immediately. So again, I'm just going to summarize what all you're going to get today when you jump in are these 20 plus turnkey, ready to use, done for you child safety documents, the strategy document, and then all of this stuff from the guest services system. You're going to get all of that today when you jump in. And if all this did was put parents at ease, would it be worth it? Would you spend $280 to make sure parents were at ease, they felt comfortable to engage with God in the main worship service because they knew their kids were safe? If all this did was ensure safety for the kids at your church, would it be worth it? If you could sleep better at night, if you know, okay, we've thought through what to do if there's a suspicious person in our children's ministry area, just to have that peace of mind, would it be worth it? If this helped your children's ministry become the safest place in town for kids, would it be worth it? This would help. If this would help you engage more people in your community because they knew, man, I don't have to worry about my kids' safety right when they're at that church. They take care of them. Would it be worth it? Show me a church with a great children's ministry, which is engaging but also safe, and I'll show you a church with stabilized attendance and frequent guests, because people go where their kids are happy, and people go where they know their kids are going to be taken care of. That'll stabilize attendance. Senior pastors out there, you should care about this. This has so much to do with new visitors and stabilized attendance for you, for your church. And you can see why, man, yeah, totally worth it. I would totally jump in. Well, today it's $99. So this is 65% off of the child safety training system. And again, we're including the guest services system completely free. And so in the chat stream, we're going to put a link. You can just click on that link. It'll open a separate tab, or you can just open a new tab, file a new tab, and go to safetyrocket.org. And it'll walk you through step by step the process to get the child safety training system and the guest services system 65% off. So this is an in-webinar exclusive offer. So I really, really want to encourage you to move quickly on this while you're hearing the sound of my voice, to go to safetyrocket.org or just click on the link in the chat stream so that you can get this brand new product, which has 20 plus resources that you can use right now. You can use them, you can make copies of them, you can email them out to all of your volunteers right now so that you have a plan. And they're editable, so you can edit some of them. Some of them may need to be modified based on your environment or when and how you meet. But this is going to get you 90% of the way down the field to ensuring that your children's ministry environment is it's the safest place for kids in your community. I believe it's a child safety and a guest services staff position for $99. Not $99 a month, not $99 a year, $99 one time. And you have almost 2 staff positions. You don't pay salary, you don't pay their insurance. You don't have to, you don't have to do anything except get this stuff set in motion. It's taken years for churches to get some of the guest services and child safety stuff together that we've gotten together in these products. Under $100, you can get it all right now. I mean, I would jump on this just to get yourself down the field. So again, it's safetyrocket.org, 65% off. Kelly, let's take a couple questions.
Great. How would you say this applies for a small church implementing a child safety program?
Yeah, I think that when both of these were created, the thought was to think of in terms of big churches and small churches. And I think small churches, you take security tags, for instance, if that's just a habit that you get into right now, if you grow, you're going to be glad that you established that process. But also, even at small churches, there's visitors. Even at small churches, you have to really put moms at ease, especially parents, have had their first kid, that, hey, this is a safe place. And even at small churches, you need to know, what we do if there's emergency weather. What we do if there's a fire, we all go out the front door. Okay, well, that's fine. We just need to know that. How do we take these kids out? Where do we go? Even at small churches, you really need to, have a discipline plan. You need to have a cleanliness plan for your room. You need to talk through, what's our policy on changing diapers? Are we ready from a handicap special needs standpoint? So I think all of this applies almost just as much. Now, big church, things like fire evacuation are dealing with a lot more kids and where you take them. Those may be more complex, but I would say almost all of the stuff that we talk about in child safety training applies, even if you're at a small church. Let's go one more, Kelly.
Can you elaborate a little bit more on bathroom guardrails, especially for toddlers?
Yeah, so it depends on if your bathroom is located within your classroom or not. If it's down the hall, and let's say you have 3 volunteers in a room, 12 kids, one of the kids says he needs to go to the bathroom, then you can walk down with him to the room, to the bathroom, but you stand outside while he's going to the bathroom. If he says he needs help, hey, I need some help, then you go get another volunteer, and so then you go into the bathroom together. And so it's not you going in one-on-one to a bathroom with a toddler. And that's a quick summary of it for the sake of time, but it really is about seeing if a kid can go to a bathroom by himself or by herself, and you standing right outside the door and telling them if they need help, then you get help and you go in 2 by 2. So you're just not one-on-one volunteer and kid in a bathroom with the door shut. So that's great. I talked about the number one thing I've learned about child safety, and I have already talked about this a little bit today, but it's security tags. Each child should get a name tag, a security tag, and sign in on the classroom clipboard. Your team should get a matching security tag for each child. So sticker is just their name. The tags are what I've talked about. And there's a lot of people out there that provide this where it's Velcroed, or maybe it is matching stickers. However you do it, there needs to be a number associated with the security tag. So your kid has a number, the parent, the guardian has that tag, so that when they come back, you make sure that they match. They sign in on the classroom clipboard. This serves as your roster. So that way, if something happens, you have to evacuate. This is the number of kids we have. You have a roster, and then you check that roster even if it's just for numbers and it's not necessarily individual names, but then if parents, let's say you move out into the parking lot because of emergency, a power outage, or because of, a fire evacuation, parents come out there, they have to check out their child from the parking lot, which means they show you the security tag, they give you the security tag back, they tell you the child, you look at the name tag, and then you look at the classroom clipboard, and then you can, make a check that says that, they've been checked out properly. And so, okay, that we have 12 kids, now we're down to 11. Let me count again to make sure I have 11 kids, because we got them in kind of a confined space in the parking lot, but you never know if somebody's going to wander off or a parent's just going to come grab a kid without saying anything. This is what security tags do. Kids cannot be checked out unless there's a matching security tag given to a guardian to check them out. Guardians must have the matching security tag with them when they pick up their child. If they have authorized someone else to pick up their child, they must be an adult and have the corresponding tag. So it's very simple. Mom, if you're going to allow grandma to check out your 2-year-old son, just give her the security tag. If she doesn't even go to church there and she's just coming to pick her up, then you got to meet her in the parking lot and give her the matching security tag for her to check out your kid. That's the number one thing you can do to ensure safety at your church. So let me remind you what you're going to get today with this in-webinar offer is these child safety documents, 20 plus documents, the strategy, the infographic, all of this stuff for guest services, $278, but it's 65% off this webinar today, safetyrocket.org. So again, you can click on it in the chat stream. It'll walk you through exactly how to get these documents. You're talking with guest services system and the child safety training system, like 35 plus documents that are going to help you engage parents, engage guests, and keep kids safe at your church. $99 today at safetyrocket.org. You need to move quickly. So Kelly, it's $259. So let's, do we have any other questions that are still popping up in the chat stream?
We don't, Ben. I think we've answered them all.
All right, well, great. So I want to thank all of you for joining us today, because I know we have people from all over the place. We had church leaders in Mexico, Greece, New Zealand, and then all over the United States. And then some of you, we didn't even get to where you're from. So just as my way of saying, hey, I appreciate you and you guys taking time. I'm going to do this. The next 5 people who jump in, safetyrocket.org, get the child safety training system and guest services system, 65% off. We're going to give you a free gift on Monday. And I'm not going to tell you what that free gift is, not because I'm just making it up, but let me just say this. You're really, really going to be glad that you signed up for this, not only because you get this, but because of the free gift that's going to show up in your lap on Monday. So safetyrocket.org, next 5 people, we're going to give you an amazing product, amazing stuff on Monday. And you just got to move. You got to move quickly, because it's going to be the next 5. And that's just good till I'm no longer talking and till you no longer hear my voice. So click now or open a separate tab, go to safetyrocket.org, next 5 people who move, we're going to load you up on Monday, all right? And you're going to be grateful for that. You're going to be so appreciative that you made this move. And again, you're going to be glad you did it, because you're going to get this system of these 20 plus documents that help you ensure the next generation is safe inside the walls of your church, that your church is the safest place in your community for kids. And we're going to have more stuff coming down the pipeline that talks about safety, not only child safety, but safety in your church. We're going to be talking about background checks and what that looks like, everything to your facilities and how to ensure that you have a safe place. We're going to be talking about human resources, all kinds of things that for a lot of churches we know in our minds are important. It's just very hard to get a handle on how to practically implement these things now. And what do we do? That's where the Rocket Company wants to help get you way down the field with this stuff that seems so overwhelming and it seems confusing. So look for more webinars, look for more content, go to safetyrocket.org. Again, the next 5 people, there's a big gift coming your way on Monday. And we appreciate you guys just tracking with the Rocket Company and the different voices and different leaders that we bring in and the different content and resources that we want to share with you. So I appreciate you guys. I hope you have an incredible day, and we'll see you at the next Rocket Company event.